Are you looking for a fun way to start your watercolor paintings loose and then tighten up? Well, today's video is for you. Welcome to Sunlit Brushstrokes. My name is Jessica, and today I'm going to be taking this loose underpainting that I shared with you last week, and you can find a link for that video in the description below, and I'm going to be bringing these beautiful blue bonnets to life. If you would like the traceable outline to this video, you can find that in my Etsy shop, and I'll include a link for that in the description below. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so now that this is dry, we are ready for some details, and I'm gonna just take it one flower at a time. I have my same purple mixtures here, but I'll probably lean more into the one that I made with the ultramarine blue, and I'll probably use a little ultramarine and quinacridone magenta as well. I kind of probably go between these two and this one and just kind of use mixtures of them all, and I may throw a tiny little bit of the phthalo blue in every now and then. And possibly this one, I'm not sure that I will though, because it is a little bit duller, and in these upper layers I want to get a little more intensity and maybe even a little bit of granulation. We will see. And if you're finding that it's really hard to kind of even see your shapes, you can always come in either with a watercolor pencil or just a regular drawing pencil and just lightly sketch in some of your shapes that have gone missing. I'm finding like, okay, this one I can see the top part, but it's really hard to see this part here. So I'm gonna go around really quickly and just kind of find any shapes that I've kind of lost here, and then I'll be back. All right, so now that I've kind of got those lightly sketched back in, I'm going to start with this more prominent little bud here, or flower here, and I will just start maybe with my number 6 round brush and drop some of the darker colors in first, and then I'll use the water to kind of just blend it around or guide it around. So this is mostly ultramarine blue, a little bit of quinacridone magenta in here, and I'm going to drop it kind of like so, and then I'll add water, and that's going to allow it to kind of just blend. And by adding the water second, it might allow some of that granulation to show a little bit. We'll see how this works. I need to work fast enough or I'm going to get hard edges like I'm starting to get down there. And just put a little bit more. You can always drop it on top as well if you need to, if it's not dark enough. And I feel like I wasn't dark enough. So just keep dropping some of that color. And I do have my 2 brushes on the go, one with water, one with pigment. So usually the smaller one is the one with the pigment in it. So the 6 has the paint, the 8 has the water, but there's no reason you have to do it that way. That's just what I do. And I'll do the same thing here. Actually, I wet it first on this one. I'll just go back and forth between the 2 techniques. So I like that, but it needs a little more magenta, I think, just a tiny bit. Ooh, that's a lot. I might need to make myself a mixture that's a little bit like a purpley magenta, just because it doesn't take much when you just put fresh pigment straight out of your well. A little bit, I'll just soak a little bit of that out, put it on a paper towel. I don't want it to be too pink. Just go back in with my more bluey color. Okay, and then we'll move down. This shape is touching, but it's barely touching, so why don't we just do it? I'm just gonna do the water first this time. And then we'll compare what we prefer, which effect, whether we want to drop water in first or do the paint first. Bring it down here. And I'll drop a little water up here where it's a little drier. Let's see what it does. All right, let's try doing this shape here. This is part of the same flower, but it's the lower section. Let's go on here first with the paint, then with the water. We'll see if it makes a difference. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip a little space. Actually, this one does have some space already in between these, so I'll just do this one next. And I'll just kind of jump around the painting, just gradually dropping these colors in. So I'll put a little bit down here. And this time I wet first. Like I say, I'm just kind of experimenting to see which way I prefer. Do this shape here. And yes, if I feel like I've gone in and, you know, everything's mushing together a little much in any certain flower, I can always come and define some of the shapes at the end, because this one is like, it's kind of keeping its form, but I'm so wet that things are moving around a little bit much, and I am losing a little bit of the details, so that's okay. I can do it if I need to, kind of as a next layer. That shape I'm kind of making a little wonky, so let's move on. Let's do some of these. I know that in this case, we're only going to get part of the flower done if I just do these little pieces that are sticking out, but why don't we just do that? So put the water in with those ones, and then I'll drop the paint along the outside edge. And I do want to start getting more colors going than just this one. This one is our mixture, but I wouldn't mind if I can drop a little bit more of our magenta color in a few places, maybe even a little bit of the phthalo blue. So let's see what we can do. You could have another palette or just kind of do what I'm doing, and I'm going to just mix kind of a little bit at the side here. That's the one thing with this mixture, that the ultramarine blue is heavy, it sinks. So if I just pick off the top, I will get more of the magenta color. And then if I want to go a little deeper into the well, I'll get more of the bluey color. So that can happen a little bit automatically, and it can happen on the paper as well. You can see what I did where I didn't put as much pigment kind of at this end of the flower. I'll add more water and just let it do its thing. It's going to bloom around a little bit. So yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think I like putting the water first, but let's give it one more try with the paint first, because I'm not really giving it enough of a try to see if we really like it, right? So that and some water. It's okay. We'll do the same thing here. We'll do wet on dry, and then add our water. I'm kind of like letting it blend a bit, maybe too much. I think it's a fine line between these two techniques. So I put water first on this one, and I'll drop the paint in. I think that's probably how I'm just going to go with most of it. I think I'm liking it better to do it that way, but you can do what you feel happier with. And yes, there's kind of like a green undertone here because I've got green mingling in here, so I can decide what color I want, or if I even want to play a little bit with a bit of just more of a blue color. I could take a little phthalo, a little bit of ultramarine, even though in here I do see I do see the pinks, I do see them. But let's just see what we think about putting a bit more of this bluey color, since there is so much green underneath of us here. See if we like that effect or not. Put a little bit more of the blue up here. I don't know. I kind of like the purple color, I think. Or where it's just a smidge purplier. But again, personal preference. Bring this in here. Sometimes it might be better to like let one shape dry before you do the lower shape, just because of the way the colors can end up mushing a little too much between each other. But let's do that here. Let's just do the single shape here. And yes, I didn't even wash my brush. There's probably a little more blue on here than maybe you would want. I'll just drop that in there. Maybe a little bit more water. I do like adding that water for the blooming. The ultramarine blue is the secret with that. That wouldn't work the same if we were just using phthalo blue. A little bit more water. So yeah, it's kind of, you know what I'm kind of doing? I'm going wet on wet, and then painting a little bit of that paint into it, or dropping the paint and then coming back in and doing a little bit more water. So water, paint, water, we're kind of sandwiching it. It's what I'm finding I'm liking the look best with this one. So drop that along the edge. Ooh, that's so pretty. I probably could have done those two shapes by themselves. I left a little gap, but do what you want there. Don't even need much extra water in that one. That's just so pretty the way it's behaving. So if it's behaving pretty and you don't want to touch it again, don't do the second drop of water. And I'm not worrying about the little veins and stuff in these flowers. I'm just more or less letting the paint do its thing, and I'm getting kind of just more of the effect of the pigments mingling and just moving around on the paper. So that's really what I'm after with this. A little bit less about the detail. Okay, let's see if we can do all this in one shot. This is an interesting kind of a bud here. So I'll drop a little bit of each color in. Drop a little, so drop the water in first and then come in with our pigment. I might come in with a little bit more of the ultramarine after. Let's put more ultramarine blue in the middle. Let's just come in with straight ultramarine. Well, besides what was on my brush, but picking up a little extra ultramarine blue and then some water and letting this do its thing. That's pretty. I don't know, not sure if I like that bud as much, or that, yeah, it's more of a bud, this one. Let's just drop some more water in it and maybe the water will create an effect, and if we still don't like it, we can add more detail later. Okay, let's come over here. I'm going to do these ones separate. I'll do the back one and then I'll come and do the front one after. Back one's a very unique shape, so just pay attention to what I'm doing here. I'm going to get a little more purple on my brush. And then I'm going to come in here and here. Yeah, I kind of like that. And I'll do the center or the side one after. It's kind of side profile. It's a unique shape on that one. Let's go up here and do a little bit. I think I could almost use a little bit of phthalo blue. Let's do that. Let's try a little phthalo blue in our brush as well. So I haven't washed my brush. It's got like all the colors on here right now. Both blues and the quinacridone magenta. When I say all the colors, that's what I mean. Oof, that's a lot of phthalo. Maybe we drop a little phthalo over here. Don't see a lot of that color, but why not? And some water, and then I will have to come in with some ultramarine blue in a quick minute here, but let's just kind of use that phthalo blue in a few places while we have it, because I'm not planning to have it on my brush too much. So I might even drop a little bit back into this background. I don't want to touch the shapes too much. Okay, you can see what's on my brush. The phthalo isn't coming out as much right now. That's kind of the fun thing about watercolors. You never really always know exactly what you're getting if you've got multiple colors on your brush sometimes. Certain ones are going to show up a little bit more than others. And I'm changing things a little bit with this one. I don't want to have the shapes touch, so I can come and refine that one later. Let's do a little bit more of our ultramarine blue over here. I think I like that. I think just soak a little bit more up. Okay. Let's move down. Everything's kind of wet right now. This shape here is okay to just still go ahead and paint. So I'll do that, and then I'll probably move over to the bottom of the painting. Drop some water. And yes, let's move down here. And because everything is so green down here, I probably will add a little extra ultramarine blue, especially here where it's kind of shady and dark. Can always make this little bud a little bit darker than the others. This one is so small it almost feels like I should call it a bud, but it is, I think, still a flower that's open. It's just more side profile. Just feels small. Put a little bit more there. And go down here. I think this will be dry enough. And if it's not, you can always just leave that little gap if you want to, or let it dry. There's nothing wrong with that. At any point in this painting, you can stop and let things dry because we're working piecemeal. So if you have to do like 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a time, this painting will allow you to do that at this stage. Obviously the background, you need to get it kind of done, but then you know, these little shapes, you can just kind of come and go as you want and fill them in. So it's a nice project for, you know, the summer, if you just kind of have snippets of time and you don't want to sit down for a long painting session. This shape here is kind of interesting, and it's a little bit almost like I maybe should let the one beside it dry. We'll try this. Okay, really blue right now. Let's take a little more magenta. Trying not to touch them together, and that's where, yes, I maybe should dry this at this point so that I can get these other shapes on here without having them mingle into each other. Put a tiny bit more blue up here. Oh, lots of purple on my brush still. Let's take a little more ultramarine blue. So you can see I kind of just go back and forth. I'm mainly sticking to my mixture that I have, but if I need more of the pink color, I'll go into the magenta. More of the blue color, I'll just go straight to the blue. And yes, you can see, made a bad decision. It's leaking into there. So I think I might just dry things and then I'll come and do a little bit of final touches to some of these because I think almost everything is touching something that's wet. So let's just go ahead, dry it, and then I shall be back. If you're enjoying today's video and you want to take your artwork to the next level, you'll want to check out these 2 watercolor rose tutorials. When you purchase either of them during the summer months, you'll have access to some live sessions over Zoom with me, where you can receive support, community, and connection on your watercolor journey. You can ask your most burning questions, and if you would like, you can even get feedback on your work. If that sounds like something you would enjoy, you can find links for those in my Etsy shop in the description below. Now let's get back to painting. Okay, so things are dry and I will come back and kind of just fill in the remaining spots, but I do really like what's coming along so far. I think that granulating blue, the ultramarine blue, is just doing a beautiful job, just giving us a gorgeous watercolor look, and so I'm excited for that. So I'm just going to come in here and just kind of fill in the remaining spots. So I'm just going to carry on doing the same thing that I've been doing, dropping this color in, wetting, dropping, sometimes doing that sandwich effect, right, where I put the water first, then some paint, then some water. I know that's a hard edge there, but I'm just making it soft edged. And you'll notice some of the time, what makes a shape stand out is that it's darker. So like, for instance, there's a shape here that's kind of behind this one. It's a lot darker and less defined than the ones in front. So you can just kind of come in with your darker pigment and drop it in there and add water. I'm not even going to do the full sandwich effect, but I'm going to get some water in here, and like I say, hopefully it'll be less detailed. And then I'll just fill this in too, kind of leave room for the little stem. I have to figure out how I'm going to manage the stems after. But in general, I'm not wanting to be too precise or too detailed with these back shapes. But the darkness is really what's going to help make things pop. You want to push anything that's behind by making it darker. That's what makes it look behind, if that makes sense. By either using cooler colors. So I just picked up a little extra ultramarine blue so that I make this extra dark, because it can lighten as it dries. But even just a darker color, it's going to help kind of push things back there. In most of the situations, I know there are a few spots you can see a little bit of a lighter flower showing through, and you're going to have to decide in those cases if you want to handle it by just doing a little bit of a blurry light color. We'll see when we get there. I'm just going to drop more dark in here. Again, I really want to emphasize that it's behind, and I will add extra darkness. Might even exaggerate the darkness if I need to really push it. So let's go like so. Might even add a little of the phthalo blue. Got way too much on my brush, I can tell. So I'll just dab it off a bit and put a little bit of the phthalo blue, because the phthalo blue is kind of a cooler blue. It'll help it recede a bit, hopefully. Hopefully, because it's different, it's not going to pop. But trying the phthalo blue. It should make it recede, other than the fact that it might draw attention because it's a little bit unique. We'll see. I can always fuss at it later if I'm feeling like that shape's not quite working right. Put a little more ultramarine there. Okay. I'm messing up this shape a little bit right here. This is supposed to be a little bit more of a flower bud shape. Oh well, it is what it is. Do your shape proper back there. Let's just lift it a little bit, see if we can fix that shape. I really don't like it. I'll just wet it, dab it. We can come back and fuss at it later. In this case, this shape is lighter, so I'll just darken where the edges meet and maybe make the rest of the shape light. So I'll just drop the water in there. And you can see I still had a little bit of phthalo blue. I had a mixture of the blues on my brush, but just make sure I'm a little bit darker kind of behind that flower there. I lift a little bit. I feel like I'm almost too puddly. There we go. Again, this one is receding because it is in shadow, so this works really nicely for us to just kind of go dark, just like we see in the reference photo, and it's just working. Helps to push this flower behind. And no, I'm not paying a ton of attention to some of the stems. We'll figure out how we handle them at the end. Drop a little bit more water on here just so we get that watercolor effect. Now this one is touching that one, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave this section alone. I'll just do this part here. I can do one part at a time. It's actually kind of pretty just like that. I'll just add a little more purple and call it a day. Now I could go in with some of the background color here, but you know what? Let's just make it like a dark purple shape, kind of this purpley blue for some of these little nooks and crannies. You can kind of go like a muted color because it's kind of just, if you look at the reference photo, it's kind of just muddy looking back there, but we can muddy it up later if we decide we're going too vibrant right now. Let's just put our blue in there and make these shapes in front pop. Like I say, we can come in and tweak things afterwards if we decide, no, we need a little bit of dullness back there. I know I'm changing the shape here. I'm just gonna let it be for now. I'll just add a little bit of water, fade it out. Ooh, gotta be careful. I'm gonna touch my wet shape. Okay, let's not do too much here. We'll fix that later. I'm running into wet. There's a little petal back here. So yeah, at this point, I'm just gonna go around and fill in what's left. I really don't know there's a whole lot to teach you. If I think of something, I will interrupt the video, but otherwise I might just speed the video up and let you know when there's something new to learn or interesting to watch. I'm just going to paint that shape blue. Just extend it. I know it could be a little bit dull and I can dull it down after, but I'm just going to go ahead and fill that like so for now. All right, I'm going to take a little break, dry it, and come back. And now that it's dry, I'll just do this final remaining shapes. Things were just a little bit too wet to be able to fill them in. So things are dry enough. I can do that. let's go into this top area and just put the tiny smallest amount of blue. I can see little bits of it here and there, not much. I might exaggerate it a touch, but most of this is green up here, so we're going to leave it green. But in a few of these little spots, we will just go ahead and do a little tiny bit of color. And in some of these sections, we will need more green. So I'll just throw just tiny bits here and there. You can even do like the odd shape that's wet on dry if you want to, or just soften it a bit. If you feel like it needs a little water, you can do that. And I think what I might do is I'm just going to do a few little lines here. I'm not copying this at face value. We want to keep things loose. But I think I will go ahead and add a little more green. I'm not too wet up here, so I think I can get away with just a smidge of our green here. Maybe even a bit of yellow, just to help define things. So I wonder if I even use what I have in my brush. I've got a bit of the purple still. Dip into my green. It's going to make the green a little bit dull. Let's see what color this is and if I think I want to use it or not. Do I use it? It could make for a shadowy kind of green. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll just go straight into the green, the clean side up here. I'll just wash that brush a bit better. And just do a tiny bit of detail. So kind of closest to the base, so I'm going to put a little bit of green. And I could use a little bit more yellow even. I could take some of this yellow here. It's kind of a golden yellow. And we'll just put it kind of at the base of these little shapes, and then we'll put a little bit of water and let it move around. We need to be careful we don't make our green and any wet purples touch. And that could happen because I do have some wetness. Down here I'm okay with it touching because we do have, I don't know, in my opinion, it gets a little muddy down this direction. So I'm okay if it touches down here. I might even put a little bit of green, some of these in between spots. Kind of taking artistic license a bit with the green. I'm not copying things, like I say, at face value, but I will just blend these around. So a bit of water now. And just let that green kind of move upwards so we don't have hard edges. Sort of like so. I can always come in and define these a little bit more after, but at least they're a touch more defined than we had them. And I'll come a little bit into here. I almost feel like we could have a little something right here too. Yeah, something like that. Maybe a little bit more of the yellowy color here too as well. There, that's better. All right, so where do we want to head next? I think I'm going to go ahead and just do the stem. So I have over here on this palette kind of just a muddy color. It's kind of a golden muddy color. I'm going to add some water and maybe some green and just see what color, kind of muddy color I get. Because it's a very dull, almost brown colored stem, isn't it? That's ugly, but I wonder if I'm going to like this. Be careful I don't spray my painting. You guys can make the color that you want for your stem. You don't have to copy the reference photo. I think it needs a little bit more orange in it, something to kind of make it just a little bit more of a golden. Yeah, I think I'm happier with that. That was a bit of, I guess you could say more red. That was a very reddish orange color. Basically it needed red is what it still needed, but let's go ahead and just paint that on there. We can always drop a little water if we want it. And if you feel like you're too wet in some places and you want to dry your painting first, definitely go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go ahead and drop the color into my stem. And yes, it's kind of mingling into the background, and I rather like that. I don't think I really want my stem to be like standing out too much. And I'll go ahead and do these tiny little, I don't know, I guess there's still little stems that attach to the flowers. And I can come in with a darker color after. I might make a darker brown, but let's just drop this lighter color first, and then we'll see. Something like that. Yeah, I'm liking that. I'm going to drop a little bit more of that color. It's a pretty color. I think I like that color in contrast to the purpley blue colors that we have going here. And see, there is a little bit of a stem kind of back here. Did I put that? It's a little bit. It's okay. And I might even put a little bit of it in some of the areas that we want to dull down, because you can see stems back here, right? These little branchy stems. And everything's just kind of, like I say, kind of muddy back there. Even though I went a little bit vibrant with my purples, you could dull things down by just dropping some of this color. And like I say, we can definitely go darker in some areas if we need to. Eesh, kind of a little bit wonky there. Okay. We can even come up here. It's up to you. I don't know if this really helps the situation, adding these colors into the kind of the base of some of these flowers. There is a bit of that, but I don't know. Does it really help or just make it worse? Put a little bit of it up here, just touches of it. And yeah, things are a little damp still up there, so it's actually kind of giving me an interesting effect. It's not super wet, but it's just kind of damp. And I actually kind of rather like that, I think. I think I like it. Some of these things are things that you decide after, do I like it or not? But I'm going to put a little bit of it on top of the blue that could be kind of toned down a bit. Because like I say, there was definitely some, you know, muddiness in the background, but I wanted to start vibrant and go muddy if I wanted it later. So I'll just do a touch of that here and there. It's kind of another stem right here, I'm noticing. Again, you don't have to be photorealistic. I'm just looking at my reference to kind of decide, okay, where do some of these stems go? And then sometimes I'm like, yep, no, it works. It works. I like filling in the odd gap with them. So you can do what you like for your little stems. And yeah, it is a crooked flower. I know it actually is that way in the reference. So I'm wondering if I want to put, maybe just make a slightly darker brown because there is some shadows in here. So you know what I'm going to do? Let's see what we can do. Kind of running out of space in my palette. I wonder if we can just take a little bit of this kind of muddier purple and just put a little bit of it with our gold color here, mixing right into the palette or the well here. You see, I kind of got like a gray color. You could mix it on a plate, or if you have room on your palette, you can do that. I was out of space, but that works. Look at that. It's kind of a shadow color, just putting that purpley color right in there. And you don't have to mix them together. You could wait for it to dry and come on top with like a second layer, but you know what? I think it's working to do it all in one layer, and it's getting these darker. So I'm liking this. So basically that same gold color with a little bit of our purple. This is the muddier purple, but it's kind of toning that down a little bit. Might need, some spots are looking a touch green. And if you don't like that, you can put a little bit of red, a little bit more red. Stick a little bit. Actually, your quinacridone magenta that we've been using all along would be fine too. Just whatever. Just something to give it a smidgen of red if your stems are looking green and you're not liking it. I don't mind a bit of a green look, but there isn't really a strong shadow coming down the stem. If you want to add a little bit of one, you could. I'm not even 100% sure, honestly. Let me see. I'm pretty sure that the light on this photo is coming from, it might be coming from above, you know that? I was going to say it's coming from the right, but I'm looking at it going, yeah, it's really hard to tell. I'm thinking the light is above us, and so that's why we've got the shadows. We don't really have a strong shadow side to our stem on this particular painting. You can add a little something if you want, or just put a little bit of shadow, you know, under the flowers, or just a little bit of texture even. Not calling it a shadow, just texture. I'm just going to blend that around a smidge with a soft brush. Don't like it completely. It's good enough. Texture is good enough. For these tiny little buds here, they are kind of lighter in the reference photo. I'm not sure if I want to lift a little bit of pigment out of them just to brighten the things up. So I've got some clear water here. I'm just going to use, oh, I see a splattered, I don't know if I like that splatter right there. I'll lift that off while we're at it, or at least lighten it. Okay. And don't rub, generally better to just blot when you do this, but I'm just using a wet brush. So I got my water right beside me. I'm dipping in here, and this is just a shader brush. It's just firmer than the other brushes, and I just use it for this purpose. So it's kind of rough looking, but it allows me to just lift a little bit in the places that I'm like, you know what, I could be a little bit lighter there, or the background could be a bit darker. That would be another option. I'm just not sure that I really feel like fussing at the background anymore. So I'm just going to blot a little bit, but I do want to add a little more darkness. So it sounds funny, I'm adding darkness and blotting, but I think I just want the darkness just at the very, very, very base of these little shapes. And I think what I'll do is use a little bit more of this gold color, because I already have the green there, right? And the gold is going to create just a slightly more neutral kind of, I don't know, bring a little bit of the spring green, but it's dulling it a little bit because it has that tiny, tiny touch of red in the yellow mixture as well. I'm just going to drop it more at the base of each of these tiny little, you want to call them little buds. They're so small. And I might not even soften them. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not minding how they look. This one could have more green in it, and it even has a little bit darker, a streak of darker green. So I'm just going to fill this in a little bit with the lighter, kind of the yellow gold color. Then I'm just going to come straight in with our green color and give us a nice dark kind of stripe coming right through here. Like so. A little bit down there. And maybe like so. I don't know. Put a little bit of green back here too. I feel like I see a little bit kind of back there. It's a bit dull and dark, but I think there is a little bit of a green undertone back there. Could even have a darker green still, but I don't know. I have some in another palette. I could pick up a little bit of this darker green. Basically, again, I make my green with those same colors all the time. It's just when I want to make a darker green, I have less yellow, more phthalo blue, and more, if I want that olive tone, I'll have more red. I typically still just make my greens with those same primaries. And I do tend to like the phthalo blue better than ultramarine for mixing my greens. Although it's up to you, because if you like a little bit of granulation, the ultramarine is beautiful too. So some days I like it, like today, and some days I don't. So go figure. Yeah, I think that helped. Just putting those tiny little streaks of green, just a smidgen, kind of at the base of this. I don't even know if I need that one over there. But I think this is an extra little detail. If you don't want that, you want to keep things nice and loose, totally good too. The last thing I want to do is a little bit of detail, maybe for a few of the shadows. In some places, if I feel like things aren't quite popping enough and I want to define some of the details, I could go like this. So I'll show you what I mean, where I'm seeing details that you may or may not care if you define them. But for instance, the shadow is a bit darker under here. Now, I don't think it's necessary, but if you're like, you know what, there's some spots you want to come in when everything's already dry and just add a little bit of detail. You can leave it dry or just blend it out. That's a kind of an option at the end. If you're like, you know what, there's a few spots I want to make them pop a little bit or just add detail, you can. But it's not super necessary. Let's fix this one that we never really quite did earlier. I'll just do a little tiny little petal in there and add a little extra blue. It's a little on the purple side, a little too purple right now. So basically, I think I'm mainly happy with it. If you are finding that in your situation you want to pay attention to some of your shadows and just deepen them, you can even leave them hard edged. You can. Like I say, I think I'm mainly happy. But if there's some spots that you want to make things pop, I will still come in and deal with the centers here. I'm just kind of trying to figure out if there's anything else I want to do with some of my tiny little flowers, just the blue shapes, any areas I want to just create a bit of texture on top and work, look at that, mainly wet on dry and just define things. You can just see the odd little shadow that I'm just pushing a little bit. It does add a little something, but it does sort of steal away from that really loose look as well. So it's kind of your call if it's worth it to you. So what I'm going to do is just speed the video up because I'm just kind of going around and looking for areas that I think, you know, I could push the darks just a tiny bit. And most of the time I'm coming in wet on dry. I'm just getting that paint on there, leaving it alone. And every now and then, if I feel like, ooh, that's a bit harsh, I'll soften the edges. This is honestly something that I think these extra details are kind of optional, but if you're feeling like you need a little bit more punch in your flower, maybe things are looking flat or everything looks too the same, that's where you can look at the reference photo and kind of look for where are the darkest darks and just push them a little bit more in your painting. This is kind of just optional. It does take away some of that loose watercolor look, but it does give some of that more realistic detail if you're the type that would prefer a little bit more of that. All right, last but not least, I will add the very smallest little details into the center of these flowers. And I'm going to take a tiny bit of this brownish color and use that color just to do this tiny little, almost like stripe, just down the center, like so. It doesn't have to even be a full line. It can be a broken line. I think that looks better when it's a bit broken. I'm not as crazy about the one that's so perfectly straight. That's almost too perfect, right? It's not like that in the photo. So yeah, I'm gonna scrub part of it off. Just make it a little bit less contrived looking. So, and sometimes those lines are kind of like sideways, right? Because of course, side profile or 3/4 profile. Just pay attention to what these are doing. And then when I get those white ones done, I will come in and do a tiny bit. Actually, you know what would look really pretty too is a tiny little bit of shadow on this one. I'm going to use the phthalo blue and just put a little bit of shadow, make that one a little darker. And then, yes, now for the fun part, tiny little bit of our quinacridone magenta. So down here, let's do the dark ones first, then we'll come up and do the light ones. So kind of do a little bit of this. I don't quite like my lines there. I'm going to soften that in a minute. Just come in and do a little bit of, this one I'm going to just fill in and then do a bit of detail on top of it because this is dark. This one's quite dark. I'll just use a little bit more. I like that. Yeah, let's just keep filling it in with a little bit more darkness. This one I'm going to add a little. I actually don't mind the shape of that. Sometimes you just have to get the right abstract shape and then you'll be happy. See a little bit of that color back here. Again, I'm not going to be super defined with this one. This one is nice and dark too. So I'll get this pink on as is, and then I'll add a little more detail after. And right here, this one is quite dark. It's kind of in shadow, and that works because we've got green coming in here from the background. That actually worked well. It kind of almost like automatically gave us shadow there. I just am noticing another one as well that's kind of in shadow, but it's a white shadow. And where there's a white shadow, I'm just going to put a little bit of the phthalo blue. Just darken it a smidge. Okay, this one needs some pink still. It's a little bit lighter now. It is getting darker in my case because I have a bit of background color there, but that's okay. It actually pushes it nicely into the background. It helps it recede, which is kind of a nice benefit of doing it this way. Sometimes you have things recede you didn't intend to have recede, but sometimes it just works. Okay, this one I need a little pink. Not too much. Yes, I think we are almost there. And I'm liking it. I'm going to put, I think what I'll do is make like kind of a purpley pink now with my magenta color. And actually, you know what? I have kind of an odd mixture of purples here. This would be, who knows? It could be either of my two blues that I always use, right? Phthalo or ultramarine or both. I think it's probably both. It's just where I've been dumping excess purple, let's put it that way. And so it probably has both of the reds, quinacridone rose and quinacridone magenta, both the blues, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue. It's just been kind of where I've been throwing excess purple when I need fresh purple mixtures. So let's just say this is my muddy purple. And I'm going to use my muddy purple. You can make muddy purple out of whatever, you know, pinky red colors and blue colors. And if you can't get it muddy enough, you can always add a tiny, tiny touch of yellow to get it muddier. But I'm just going to use those and just do some of these very small details. So you can see that line kind of running through these as well, right? And so just, you know, even half lines, I don't really like it when I do that full line. I think that looks kind of weird. So if you do a full line, you can always like mess it up a bit so it's not quite so perfect. And yeah, just do a tiny, tiny little bit of this. And I might come in here. Almost I could use a bit of gold color for some of these as well. But I do like that. That added just a little something. And a little bit of that. Yeah, maybe something like that. I think I'm mainly happy with this. Yeah, it's just noticing a little bit of wanting a little bit of something here. Just a bit of dark shadow here as well. Now you can call it good at this point. If there's areas that you still feel like, you know what, I want to push the darks further, you can. Nice, but not necessary. I think overall I'm happy with this as a loose piece. But like I say, if you see darks in the reference photo, that's a great place to consider pushing the darks in your painting. What do you guys think of it? It's totally kind of a different technique for me to go quite so abstract to start with, but I think I like that. And I feel like it gave it a nice sense of context. Everything's just kind of, I don't know. I feel like it's working, but I'd love to know in the comments what you think of this technique, whether you're trying it or maybe you work with this technique regularly. And if you've enjoyed this tutorial, you might want to check out my watercolor floral playlist. In the meantime, I hope this tutorial has brought a little taste of God's beauty and peace into your everyday life, and that it's inspired you to continue enjoying your own creative journey. See you again soon. Bye.